Welcome to another episode of the Life of Elvis podcast. I'm your host, Elvis, and today we have Jessica Lundgren from the States. She's a dating and self-love coach. So thank you very much for coming on my podcast.
Thanks, Elvis, for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so share your story a little bit, introduce yourself, and tell us a bit more about yourself.
Do you have a few hours? Just
Make it a bit
kidding.
shorter.
So, like you said, my name's Jessica. I am a mother to my 4-year-old daughter. I work full-time in project coordination and construction, and I am a dating and self-worth coach. My past in dating for the first 10 plus years was really dismal. I had this really awful pattern of attracting guys who weren't interested in committing or weren't emotionally available, and yet I continued to put myself in relationships with them. And it wasn't until much later and a lot of internal digging and personal development growth that I realized that a lot of what I was experiencing in my life was a result of beliefs that I had inside. And so if I wanted to change what I was experiencing, I needed to start changing what was inside, not just my beliefs, but my focus and my thoughts about myself, and ultimately my self-worth and how I saw myself.
Did you get to what you do now as a dating coach?
Yeah, well, once I started getting the answers of, understanding why I was getting the results that I was getting, why had I been choosing to do what I was doing? Why would I stay in relationships that were unhealthy as long as I did when it wasn't filling me up, when I wasn't experiencing that love that I wanted to experience? And the last 10 years, it really has been me working on myself and changing those beliefs and rewiring my mind, replacing disempowering thoughts and beliefs with more empowering ones. And I've experienced a complete transformation in my life, not just in my dating world, but just all areas of my life, especially just emotions that I experience on a day-to-day, and how to process things that happen to me. And that is what really led me into doing what I do now. There are a lot of people out there who are just done with trying to date. It's a different game now with online dating, and I hear from both sides, men, women, who are trying to find a man or a woman or whoever, that dating just sucks, and they're meeting all of these awful people. And how do you meet a good man? How do you meet a good woman? How do you build a long-lasting and fulfilling relationship? And that's what I help people do. I help people understand why they aren't getting the results that they want in their love life, and it really has to do with every area of life. They're all connected. If you're not where you want to be at in your health, and you're talking down on yourself and self-criticizing and everything like that, it's going to seep into your dating life. And so it's all encompassing.
Mm-hmm. So how do you help the clients you're working with?
That's a great question. I think it really depends on the client and where she or he is at, and ultimately, what are the goals? What are the goals that they have? What do they want to experience that they're not experiencing yet? The majority of the work starts on the mindset. The mindset is the foundation to any results, whether it's building a business or finding a new career or, finding the perfect partner. It all goes back to mindset. So a lot of the work that I do is helping people get clarity on the beliefs that they have now that are limiting them or blocking them, or guiding them to continue in an old pattern that isn't serving them. And we work on replacing those beliefs, creating a new mindset that is more empowering and elevating. I work a lot with clients on building relationship skills, so how to communicate your needs, how it for women and men too, but I work primarily with women, and so it's really important to become a really good observer, because so often these days women, we see a man and we see like the potential, right? Like we see, oh, this guy is awesome, but he can be better with this, and that. And so we try and change him or help him or save him. And guys don't want to be helped, saved, or changed. Isn't that the truth?
Depends.
They want to figure it out on their own.
Yeah, I guess most of the time it's like that.
That's not saying that men don't want to change or improve or be better, but I think it's safe to say that they don't want a woman forcing them to change, or like not. They want a woman to love them for who they are in the moment. And so I think it's really important for women to understand that, like, you don't want to be like, you need to find a man who is already like has the character that you're looking for, like in that moment. And I think that is not taught. I never learned it.
There's a lot of things that have never been taught.
Well, that is a whole different discussion. Yeah. There are a lot of things. Yeah. And relationships is one of them. I mean, it's a huge one. Conflict resolution. How do you lay down boundaries in a loving and respectful way? How do you honor yourself and the other person? Red flags is a big one, like helping people to identify what their red flags are, like what to look for. And I think ultimately just building that inner self-confidence.
These days we see a lot of, like you say, people have trouble finding the right partner. The divorce rate is crazy high and all that stuff. A lot of fighting going on in relationships. So what do you think, or what you saw from being a coach in this field? What are the biggest issues that people have that stop them from having actually good and fulfilling relationships?
Yeah, so I think if you're already like with someone and married, I think one of the biggest issues is the focus when you first met that person is on it naturally is on fulfilling someone else's needs. Like when you go through the lust period, you naturally are being your best self. You're showing the best version of yourself. And it's easy to be nice, and it's easy to do things for someone else. It's easy to put the other person first. When you've been married for 5, 10, 30 years, the focus tends to turn more inward on the self. Like, I don't feel loved. I don't feel like he's doing this. I don't feel like she's meeting this. And it's more of a blame of he's not meeting my needs or she's not meeting my needs versus how can I meet his needs. And so in order to have a successful and really fulfilling relationship, the us needs to come first. It's more about, what do I need to do to make us feel better? What do I need to do to make us, the relationship, healthier, happier, more loving, more passionate, intimate? And so oftentimes, like when you when you start thinking about to the beginning of your relationship when you were first dating and saying, what did we do then that we're not doing now? It brings back a lot of emotion and memory of like, you know, how you guys treated each other. What did you do? What were the rituals that you had in the relationship? You know, asking each other lots of questions, going on dates, making time for each other. And when you've been married for a long time, like you get lost in the day-to-day life. I think in dating, it's a little bit different, right? Because you haven't spent that time with the other person. I think the biggest thing in dating is not, I call it dating with intention. And basically what that just means is like, before you go out and start meeting new people and you know, giving it a shot, trying to find your partner, like you need to know what you want. A lot of people, including myself, like we just go out hoping that we're going to find someone, and we really give ourselves to anyone who's going to give us the time of day or show us interest, or, you know, it feels good. But the whole like feeling good is it's not what's going to sustain a relationship. And so it's really important to like have clarity on what it is you want. What do you need? What is the character of the person that you're looking for? Know that first.
Yeah, that was a good point. To be fair, a lot of the things that we talked about on this podcast, where it really boils down to, or some of the advice the other guests they gave on this podcast, is just be present, right? And yeah, if you're with someone for years, whether it's 2 or 25 years, you get stuck in habits. You know, at the beginning, it's all new. There's so much novelty. So, like you said, it's easy to be, you know, really nice to the other person, but then you get stuck in the habits, and you know, so I guess injecting some novelty, even when you're 20 years into your relationship, is very important.
Well, yeah, it's a necessity.
Yeah.
Vital to the health of the relationship for sure.
Mm-hmm. So, what would your advice be to break out these patterns? Like when someone's in a long-term relationship and it's just like same over every day, how would you break out of it?
Yeah, the first question that I would ask is, what's my role? And it's a really hard question to ask because you have to step up and take responsibility, even if you're not the one. If you're not the one, like if you feel like you're not the one doing the wrong, or you feel like someone else, like the other person, is mistreating you or betraying you or not meeting your needs, it's really hard to ask that question and step up and take responsibility. But in any relationship, it takes two to tango. We've all heard that phrase. And change starts from like inside you. And when you start changing the way that you speak to a person, or the tone of voice that you have, or you know, whatever, the other person is not expecting it, and it's kind of like a shock of like, oh wait, that's not how I was expecting you to talk to me, or that's not what I thought you were going to say to me. And when you've been in a pattern for so long, where the pattern is like the woman says something, and the man already, before she even speaks, is expecting to hear what he's already heard in the past, which may be criticism or um or you know, I don't know, whatever, anger, or you know, name calling, or disrespect, essentially. And so in his mind, his response is already going to be of self-defense. Whereas, you know, if she's working on herself and she has committed to, okay, I'm committed to speaking to him with respect, and the next time they get in a fight or something and her reaction is of respect and love, he's going to initially just automatically want to respond in self-defense to continue the cycle, and all she has to do is just be like, stay quiet, and then he can't blame her for the way that she spoke to him or whatever. Like, does that make sense? Like, yeah. So I think ultimately it starts with like yourself. Where can I take responsibility? What changes can I make? What have I been contributing to this relationship that has led us to get to where we are at right now?
I think the things you're talking about basically comes down, or even like getting into a relationship or finding the right partner. It's positioning itself versus prospecting. Big difference there. Like even
I love that.
With my podcast, if I go around people like, hey, you want to watch my podcast? It's really good. You know, I can ask 1,000 people, and people are gonna be like, what the hell are you on about? You know? But if I do a good job with my podcast and put good content out there, you know, it's gonna attract the right people just by itself.
Yeah, and I think that is such a great point, because you're shifting your energy and you're shifting what you're putting out into the world, and that is so huge. Like, especially in dating, like if you're carrying an energy about yourself of like fear of finding the right guy, or fear of not noticing the red flags, you're bringing that energy of fear. Say that again.
Or neediness.
Yeah, that's a big one. You're bringing that into like the date, and a guy may not be able to pinpoint and say, hey, like, I feel your fear, but he's gonna feel something is off. And so I think I love what you said, like positioning yourself first is so important, and having the right mindset and energy.
Yeah, people feel the energy from the other person, even though it's subconscious. You know, it's a bit of intuition, you know, feeling about this person. And yeah, if you position yourself, in other words, you do the work you need to do on yourself, and you do the things you want to do in your life, then even then the chances of having a good relationship that's fulfilling and it's gonna last are just gonna get higher, right?
Yeah, that's the very simplistic way of saying it, but yes, I love that.
Yeah. So yeah, you guys listening to this, just go after your dreams, work on yourself, things will be fine. What is true love? Because I think there's quite a lot of misconceptions, and people think something is true love, and it's not really. It's more like just attachment. So share your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I can say from personal experience that in the moment or the time that I was dating someone, I thought that I loved them. And then once the relationship ended and some time had passed, and I had gone back and, really analyzed the relationship, what worked, what didn't work, what was my role, what can I learn? I realized that I didn't really love them. And it was more of like a lust or a connection with someone that I was really searching for. So I think love is not a feeling. I think love is an action. I think love is something that is a result of behavior. Like when you're treating somebody with respect, and you're honoring them, and you are putting their needs first, not at necessarily the expense of your own, or I'm not saying like you're walking all over yourself, or not honoring yourself, but essentially you're asking yourself first, what do they need, what would make them happy. That sort of behavior is what creates love. So I think true love is the action first, followed by the emotion.
I was asking this because even if you just read some lyrics for some famous love songs or something like that, you read them and people confuse it with just attachment to this person, right? Whereas even if you look at some Buddhist teaching, they they basically say it's the opposite. Love is not attachment, but it's feeling love and compassion for this person unconditionally. Even if they do something bad, if they leave you, if you wish them well, you know, feel compassion to them. That's true love.
Yeah, and humans are not, that is not natural for us. I don't think that's what comes first for us. I think it's something that you have to be 100% conscientious of, and it has to be a choice. You have to consciously choose love. It doesn't, it's very easy for the ego and pride to get in the way. And I think that's what happens so often. I can't tell you how often I'm like reading on Facebook and social media, like the words, I don't love him anymore, or she doesn't love me anymore. Like, and it boils my blood because that's not how love works. Like, that's not what it's about. And the truth is that, like, in a relationship, when you're with someone for that long, like, it is going to ebb and flow. Like, your feelings for someone are going to go up and down. It's part of being in a long-term relationship. And the way that you treat someone can't be based on how you feel in the moment about them. Mm-hmm. Like, the way you treat someone should be based on the choice that you made from the beginning when you said I do. Like, and that's a really big difference. Like, when you choose to commit to somebody, you're making a lifelong choice at that time that you are going to treat them the way that they deserve, regardless of if you like them in the moment or not, because of, the way they spoke to you, or, what they did or whatever. So.
Yeah. See, this is, I do think this is a really big problem, especially here in the West, right? That, like we said earlier, there's so many things people just we've been never taught, right? And this is one of them. It's like people confuse love with so many things, and and I see what you were saying about love, and like what I said earlier, this unconditional love and compassion with people, that it doesn't come naturally. Yeah, that's because a lot of things get into the way, like all these other feelings, pride, ego, anger, and all that stuff that can override all that stuff. But what I've always been saying in my talks, and we come back to this on my podcast as well, is that the nature of humans is truly loving and compassionate. Right? We are hardwired to love and connect and all that. It's just that all these other things come into into the way. And the concept of unconditional love, even though some people talk about it, whether it's in religion here in the West, they have no idea what they're talking about. It's like, for example, some religious people are going to be talking about unconditional love and all that stuff, but then they talk behind other people's backs of people who perhaps don't go to a church or something like that. So, yeah, we got a lot to learn over here, and also a lot of work to do to reconnect with our true loving nature. That's my view on this.
Yeah, well, bringing church in and like the whole concept of God and church into the topic totally blows it up to a different level and proportion, for me personally. But I definitely think that we need love and connection. That for sure is truth. And it is one of our basic survival needs is to be loved. And two of our greatest fears are not being loved and not being good enough. And that's where dating and relationships are so hard, is because we are afraid of rejection. We are afraid of not being good enough. We are afraid of giving ourselves fully 100% to another person and them not reciprocating it, or them not like honoring it and trusting it and really like cherishing that. And I think the majority of relationships in this day and age don't experience the vastness of what love and like being in a relationship truly could be and feel like, because there is such a deep fear of rejection and not being good enough.
Very well said. They can't experience the whole vastness, because love is pretty much infinite. As cheesy
right.
as it sounds, it is.
Yeah. And that's where it goes back to like growth and focusing on yourself, is that you and this is debatable, but I believe that you can only love someone as much as you love yourself. And if you really want to experience more depth and love and intimacy in a relationship, it has to start with yourself. It has to start with like, where do I love myself? Where don't I love myself? Where can I love myself more? And as you explore that, you learn, and as you become more accepting of yourself, you naturally are then able to be more accepting of someone else and their faults and flaws and weaknesses. And so it's a really great mirror. Like they always say, like when you're in a relationship with someone else, it's a direct mirror and reflection of yourself and like what's inside of you. And so if you're someone who is, has little patience or compassion, and I'm guilty of this stuff too, right? Like it's easy, perfect. Right? It's easy to go off on someone else for them doing something wrong, but it's really a reflection of you not having that ability for yourself, for in whatever area. And for me, that's really like, it's a constant. I'm constantly working on that. I'm never going to get to the full destination. I think, like you said, love is infinite, and you're always going to be able to learn how to love more.
Mm-hmm. Just to put it in a bit simpler terms, like, yeah, I remember even Krishnamurti, one of my favorite philosophers, he would say that relationships, and we are always in some kind of relationship, we're never isolated, they are a reflection, a mirror for us. So let's say my partner does something, it pisses me off. So now the question is not why this partner did it, right? But it's more like, why does it trigger me so much? Right?
Yeah.
What's the issue inside me that, it's like Gabor Mate also talks about it. If the ground is rough on your feet, well, you can bubble wrap the entire planet, or you can put some shoes on, right?
Yeah. I read, I probably am going to mess this up, but I read something similar to that, where there was this man who was in a boat and it was really foggy, and he crashed into the boat, and he got so angry, and then the fog disappeared and he realized that there was no one in the boat that he crashed into.
Yeah.
And that really convicted me. It convicted me because it really it forces you to say, like you just said, why did that trigger me? Why did I get angry about this? What within me is really going on there?
And one thing that I wanted to add to what you said a little bit earlier, that people are afraid that they're not going to get the love they're giving, they're not going to receive it back in any way. And this is what I'm very thankful for, learning from more from the Eastern traditions like Buddhism or yeah, mainly that. Because if you listen to Thich Nhat Hanh or someone like that, they say that loving someone means you don't want anything back. And like even it could be very easy for me, like to I think of my previous girlfriends to be like, oh man, what a bitch that was, she liked me or whatever, to have that kind of attitude. But I don't have that really. Like all the ones that I've been with for, like I do wish them all the best, and yeah, I think that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing too, I think that's important is to have grace on yourself, because
Mm-hmm.
it takes time to grow yourself, to be like, to have that mindset. And like you said earlier, we're not perfect. So there are 100% going to be times where someone says or does something to you where you naturally go to that old pattern of reaction. But the empowering and exciting like part of self-growth is like you have the tools on your tool belt now to be able to like stop yourself and go, oh wait, like, is this really how I want to react? Do I really want to say this? Like, how do I really feel about this? um
Yeah, it's a lifelong process. You can't expect to be perfect right away. Again, no one's perfect. Things happen. But what you just said, that again, it comes down to just being present and being aware.
and I think that that is a really important perspective to have, like in dating, is that um you're not going to find someone who's perfect, but I think it's really important to find someone who is like already pursuing that growth mindset, and encompasses the character that we've really been talking about, which is um taking responsibility and accepting like their part in the relationship, and really pursuing unconditional love, not only with someone else but primarily first with themselves. um and to really like look for that, like to be intentional in finding that kind of person, because it makes a really big difference in the relationship. Like when two people come together who already have been pursuing that type of mindset and lifestyle, it makes it a whole lot easier to work on the relationship and create the relationship that you want when you have somebody, when you're in relationship with somebody who is pursuing growth.
Yeah, definitely. Again, comes back to what you were saying earlier about um, prospecting versus positioning yourself.
I think if we were to sum up really everything that we've been talking
Mm-hmm.
about for the last plus or minus hour, it would be that um, self-love is number one. That working on yourself, like if you find yourself in a relationship where you're not being like, you're not getting your needs met, or you're not feeling the intimacy that you want to feel, or if you're dating and you're in a pattern of finding unhealthy people, the first step is to look inside and ask yourself, like, where am I responsible? And then two, vulnerability is, it's power paramount, like to know yourself and to love yourself enough to put yourself out there to somebody else that you know and trust, and to really like pull the veil back and show your true, authentic 100% self. um which is really scary because there is a risk of rejection, or not getting the response back that you want. But those two things are really what build a long lasting and fulfilling relationship.
I think a lot of people are gonna be thinking, but how do I love myself? So I've heard a lot of people or met people who were struggling with it for some reason, whether it was their parents having super high expectations from them or something. So this concept of loving yourself was kind of alien to them to some extent. So what would your advice to be to them to love themselves?
Yeah, loving yourself it's very broad, and there are so many aspects to it. I think the easiest way of starting is just like asking yourself, would I say this, or would I treat somebody else the way I'm treating myself, or the way I'm speaking to myself? Is like a very simple, like, first step. Self-love is, it can get complicated because it does go back to your past. A lot of times the environment and the people that we've grown up with have given us labels to our identity that we've accepted and we're unconscious of, and those labels we carry with us into adulthood, and we naturally just like carry it out. So I've worked with a lot of women who have experienced like a no father figure, or like some sort of like emotional or even physical abuse in their childhood, and they realize that even though they're not that child anymore, that they're not in that situation anymore, the mindset and the beliefs that they had to have to survive that period of their life, they're still living by in the present. And in order to really experience a full like self-love, you have to identify the beliefs and the labels that are not serving you anymore, that are not allowing you to love yourself anymore. And I think the third part to self-love is to really like bring the power back into yourself and know that whatever story you lived is 100% of part of who you are, but it doesn't have to continue to be your story now. Like, you have the power to rewrite your story and take your life in any direction you want to go. And and self-love naturally grows like as you start to take like ownership of your identity and your worth, and like the more you recognize that and you replace beliefs and patterns that aren't serving you, your self-love just, it amplifies.
Some good advice there. I think that's gonna help people. I would just add two things. First of all, many people think they're not going enough and all that stuff, but the opposite is true. And it's again another thing no one taught us. I guess learning about minor cubist artists is more important than this at school. But isn't it true though?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. But you as a human being, you are tremendously valuable. Your life matters. You're tremendously valuable. You are good enough the way you are. And that's a message that everyone should get throughout their entire life. Unfortunately, that's not true for one or other reason, um, whether it's parents bringing up their children in ways which are not that great, or whether it's corporations telling us the other something totally different, that you're not good enough unless you buy our product. So you gotta be aware of those things. And the second thing that I want to bring up, Gabo Mate mentioned this quote, and I encourage everyone to check out his work. He's brilliant. I'm going to paraphrase this, but he said that all the struggles you go through in life, they're there for a reason. It's that they've been put there by a part of you that's so deep within you and that loves you so much that it wants you to go through these experiences and overcome whatever is needed for you to grow and to become a better version of yourself, really. I totally butchered this, but that's the gist of it.
No, I think that is definitely so important to view struggles and hard times as like there's something in them that's positive. Mm-hmm. And that again is really hard to do, especially when you're in the moment of that hardship.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And to believe that like there's a lot of people that view that like the world is out to get you, or that it's that there's no meaning or like purpose, that it's just like accidental or something like that. But I really do believe, like, without getting into a deep discussion of religion and mm-hmm. spiritual belief, but that whatever is out there that's higher than humans, whatever like energy or divinity or whatever, wants each of us to experience a good life. Like, life is meant to be good, and things are working out for our own good, even if it doesn't look like that or feel like that. Like you said.
Sorry, go on.
No, that was like pretty much the gist of it.
Yeah, I just want to say, at the very minimum, it's a really good mindset to have when approaching these things. Other than being, oh my God, this is so shit, why is this happening to me? To be like, I guess there's something for me to learn here. It's a much more constructive way of looking at these things.
Yeah, and you'll get the message too. Like I mm-hmm. without giving any names or anything, I know of this person in my life who continues to experience these big, well, they started small kind of hints, like something would happen in her life. Like, her oldest daughter like grew up, moved out of the house, and now doesn't really want to visit all that often. Mm-hmm. Right. And then something bigger happened where her youngest son, they don't get along very well. And so now he's living elsewhere. Like, he moved out of the house and is living elsewhere. And then the signs are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and she's still not getting the message. Like, I am a firm believer that, like, if you continue to like experience things that are not like favorable, like you said, someone's tapping at your door saying, hey, I'm trying to tell you something, and it's a whisper and it's a small thing, and if you're not in tune to it and you're not listening to it, or you're not following it, or you're not getting the lesson, the tap is going to get louder and louder and louder, and then all of a sudden, boom, your life is falling apart. And now you really have to take a look and say, what is the message that I am that I'm supposed to get here? And that doesn't mean that like big bad things aren't going to happen if you're like in tune to, the lessons that are trying to be taught to you. But I do believe that, like, if you're looking for all of the like the meaning and growth that you can get in the hard situations, you're growing yourself to a place where when bigger things happen, it's not as big, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And for all my listeners, I can totally say that it's so true what you just said. I mean, the last few months, that was literally what was happening in my life. You know, things were building up until it all crashed, and I was like, right, I guess I need to sort my shit out. You know, but at the end, I got the message, you know, and things really worked out in my favor, like probably more than like ever before. So that's how we finish off. So the three questions which I ask every guest I have. For my listeners, you can find all the answers from each one of my guests in a place on my YouTube channel. So first question, if there was one simple piece of advice you could give to people, just one, what would it be?
Don't be afraid to invest in yourself and grow. And that's not just financially, it's spiritually, emotionally, mentally, like invest in yourself.
That's a good one. Okay, second question. What does femininity mean to you?
Oh, this is a good one. I think femininity to me means operating, like carrying myself in my true nature. It means like, and in my true nature is like loving, it's compassion, it's humility, and it's I personally believe for myself that it's kind of like a meekness, a quietness. And what I mean by that is like how I respond to people. So like if someone is saying something, and this is something I've been working on. Actually, it's funny that you asked me this. I've been working on like my own femininity for a long time, and I still am working on it. But I think I think the biggest part for me that I'm working on in my femininity is responding in a way that is loving and respectful. I think for me, naturally, I attack and I say a lot of mean things to both women and men, but primarily men who trigger me. And I think the piece of femininity that I'm really like working on right now is like, how do I honor myself and set my boundaries in a way that is also loving and respectful to somebody else.
Well, I'm glad I didn't piss you off today then.
Yes, that's a good thing.
Okay, last question. What do you think is the meaning of life?
These are huge questions. Oh my gosh, you could talk a whole hour just on those. What is the meaning of life? I think the short version, my short answer is the meaning of life is growing to be the best version of yourself and contributing to other people. Mm-hmm. Not keeping a secret, what you're learning.
Yeah.
Passing it on forward. Yeah.
Great. It was really nice talking to you today then.
You too. You shocked me with some of those questions. But I'm glad you asked them because they are important. So
yeah, carefully selected questions, especially the last three.
They were good.
Yeah. So where can people find you?
Yeah. So my website is probably the easiest. It's jessicaelundgren.com. And there you can find a really fun dating quiz. So if you're looking for your quality partner, You can take the quiz and discover your dating archetype. And yeah, I'm on Instagram, Finding the Good Men. And my website really is the best place to go.
Great. As always, you'll be able to find all the links, whether it's to Jessica or to myself, in the description below. I'll see you in the next one.